Hi there, Dr. Carmen McGuinness here with your Sunday segment. I am a board-certified behavior analyst and health psychologist, and on this channel we discuss relationships of all sorts, including what I call the primary relationship, which is the relationship that we have with ourselves. And this week that is particularly true, as my topic is identifying a secure sense of self-identity. And I'm actually going to take this topic across 2 weeks because it is a biggie. There is a lot of us. We are larger than life, us people, and we deserve to be. We deserve to truly know ourselves very well. And sometimes that can be a bit of a challenge. So I'm going to give you 8 things that you might consider in formulating a sense of self. This week we're going to go through the first 5, and then next week we're going to dig quite a bit deeper into the remaining 3. And before I begin, I just want to say a few words about the importance of self-identity. And this is what lights up in the psychological research. It has been shown quite strongly that those of us who have a strong sense of identity, a strong sense of who we are, report being happier in middle and older years. We tend to have fewer marriages and be married for a longer period of time. We tend to raise happier, healthier children. Our children tend to have college degrees. And we also tend to report that we are happier with our career and with our friendships. So clearly a sense of self is a very important thing to have. It is possibly the most important thing that we have in our lives. So here we go. So this week, I have my notes on my phone. I've been traveling. For those of you who are regular subscribers and saw my midweek sneak peek, I was way up in the air in a tree house where I was staying with my family in Georgia. So I went ahead and I wrote my content for the week in my phone notes instead of in a PowerPoint, which is what I usually do. So I'm just going to be looking at my phone. I'm not checking my texts. So the very first one is the question, and you can either frame it as a question or as a statement, whichever you're more comfortable with. And that is, who am I, or who I am, whichever you feel more comfortable with. And just to give you some examples, I'll use myself. I'm always throwing myself out here as an example. These are going to be the things, perhaps the many hats you wear in your life. So teacher, mother, psychologist, writer, student, friend, lover, employer, and a very personal one here right at the end, fairy. And what that speaks to is an aspect of myself that loves nature, loves spiritual things, and considers herself to be a sort of an energy force. So that's what I mean about digging deep. Really, when you go through who are you, be very thorough. Don't leave anything out. And even for me, as I wrote this, me who's writing about this, talking about this, I had to really think about it. Exactly who am I? Okay, so the second one, my personal characteristics. These are going to be the things that people see you as, but they're also the things that you see yourself as. Some of them might be things that you want to project to the world, to others, and some of them might be more personal that maybe you just know about and you're happy with that. So again, be exhaustive. It's quite important to be thorough as you go through this so that you thoroughly have a good sense of self. So for me, for instance, I put down creative, intelligent, excited. I'm very excited about life, about my life. And then a few others that are kind of embarrassing, so I won't go through them. Well, pushing down a little further, helpful, for instance, trustworthy. Diligent. I am definitely diligent. If I say I'm going to get it done, I get it done. Prepared. Introspective, which of course is what we're doing right now. We're being introspective. So those are just a few examples from my own list. So far we have who am I, or who I am, and we have my personal characteristics. And then the third one is what I believe. And this is just so important. I have to say, I struggled with this one a little bit, but I think it's an important idea. So I'm not going to read all of what I believe. This might be, for instance, a political persuasion, which I don't want to get into here on YouTube, or it might be a religious, your particular spirituality. But the one I will share with you is I wrote The Power of the Individual. So this really speaks to my belief that the individual can create his own life, his or her own life. Obviously, there are people who are very sadly impaired. Serious things have happened to them. So I'm not just saying here that anyone can just make their life better. I understand that there are circumstances in life that are often insurmountable. But I very much do believe in the power of the individual. So that's what I put under what I believe, among some other things. So the next one is what I'm interested in. And this one and the one after it really do sort of get down to who you want to spend your time with. There's some pretty good data out there that shows that you should have common interests that overlap by about 25 to 30% at least with friends and romantic partners. If you are not at 25 or 30% or higher, you're probably going to have difficulty staying engaged with one another. You're going to find each other possibly boring. So what you're interested in is pretty important. So I wrote a lot of things here because I have a lot of interest, but obviously human behavior. I'm very interested in human behavior. I'm also interested in futurism, what's known as futurism. And this is the idea that we can look into the future and talk about what might come up, what new developments there might be, what new technology there might be, what new trends there might be. This is a long time interest of mine. I've been interested in that since I was a very young girl. I also have here yoga and healthy living. Of course, I'm a health psychologist, so that's no surprise. And yoga kind of probably goes into that. Healthy eating, things like that. And then the next section is what I like to do. And again, this speaks to who you're going to want to spend your time with, who your friends will be, who your romantic partners will be, and possibly what your job might be. So for me, just a few examples. I like to be outside, which dovetails with me being a fairy. I like to write. So just look at those two as an example. Whoever I might choose as a romantic partner, it's probably not going to be somebody who's cowering in the air conditioning when it's north of, or south, I should say, of 80 or 90 degrees, because I like to be out in the heat. I don't mind it. It doesn't bother me. I don't mind the cold very much either. I do bundle up though. But at the same time, I also like to write. So I need to choose someone in my life who can entertain themselves and occupy their own lives while I'm busy writing for hours on end. I like to do physical things. I like to cycle. I like to do yoga. I mentioned that under things I'm interested in because it's a philosophical. There's a philosophical aspect to yoga. I like to drive fast cars. True confessions. I like to listen to live music. I like to cook. I take cooking classes. So again, those last two things really speak to who you want to spend your time with. And if there's not a good 25 to 30% overlap in what you are interested in and what you'd like to do, for me, for instance, if you don't like grocery store dates, you're probably not going to last. If you don't like to hang out while I cook and keep me entertained while I'm cooking, you're probably not going to last. So these are important things to know about yourself, what you like to do and what you're interested in. So far we've talked about, and what I suggest that you do is just make a bullet list. Who I am, or who am I? My personal characteristics is 2. What I believe is 3. What I'm interested in is 4. And what I like to do is 5. So with that in mind, and taking some time this week to kind of think about those things and make some notes for yourself, again, be exhaustive, I would then ask you to come back next week. And what we're going to talk about next week is, what do I need? Now think about how important that is. What do I need? If you go through your life and you're not given what you need, or you're not able to take what you need because you don't even know what it is, you're going to have some challenges. So it's very important to know what you need. And the next one is, what barriers are or did stand between me and myself? And when I say are or did, if you've come to a point in your life where you feel like you are starting to really know who you are, or you do know who you are, you do have a strong sense of identity, then just make a list of what barriers stood in the way. And if there are still barriers, put those on your list as well. So, and then the third one, what I need or needed to do to get back to being me. And this one really might be for people of my age or somewhere around my age, who maybe had a path in life and things were going well, and then they started making babies, they started making money, they had a career, they saved the world, whatever it was that they did. I know for me, I was very keen on human behavior and more esoteric side of things. When I started to invent a literacy method, the phonographics reading method, and became much more scientific and data-driven, and spent many years doing that. But it was a cause. I felt that I had to do it. I did feel that I was saving the world. It was a time when no one was learning to read. 33% of the students in the US and UK were not learning to read. So I spent quite a few years doing that. And that was my choice. But it was also a barrier between what I was, who I was, and where I wanted to be. So that's the sort of thing that you might write down. And sometimes when I work with people who have children, we find that having that particular child of a certain age can be a bit of a barrier. And it's important to know what these things are because we know that we can get beyond them. We know that we can set time limits. But I've gone far too far into the last 3. Those are really for next week. Next week we're going to talk about what do I need? What barriers are there that stand between me and myself? And what I need or needed to do to get back to being me. That's for next week. Okay? So there you go. There's quite a lot for you. I've given you a homework assignment with those first 5. Make a list. Write down everything. And keep it handy as the week goes on. If you do it on your phone, when you think of something, you can just add it. And I'll see you next week. And before I say good evening to you tonight, I would like to read one small passage, a page from a book that I bought when I was in Georgia this week. Things Trees Know. I love this title. The title caught my eyes. The size of the book caught my eyes as well. And if we go to page 12, and I've already told you I consider myself to be a bit of a fairy, so I guess the whole concept of what trees might know caught my eye, caught my imagination. On page 12, and there's lots of little things in here that trees know, but on page 12, this pertains to our topic today. It says that trees know to grow from the bottom up and from the inside out. And when I saw that, it just struck me how much it speaks to the idea of self-identity, of knowing yourself, of creating yourself. And when you know yourself, you're in a position to be able to manifest and reflect into the world you, rather than some shadow version of yourself. So thank you for tuning in today, and I hope you have a wonderful and blessed week, and I will see you soon.